It was the hardest period for us because it felt like the world was against us. And here's the thing, we were against each other, if I'm being completely honest.
Everyone assumed it was just another messy celebrity family feud, the kind that fuels headlines for a few weeks and then fades into the background. But while people argued over wedding drama, inheritance rumors, and who might benefit from the Beckham name, something quieter and far more strategic was unfolding. Victoria Beckham didn't launch a counterattack. She didn't issue emotional statements. She didn't correct every rumor. Instead, she did nothing. And somehow, that silence shifted the narrative. While the noise swirled around her, Victoria's fashion and beauty empire kept expanding. Critics who once dismissed her label as a vanity project began acknowledging its precision and staying power. Industry coverage shifted from skepticism to respect. When her brand posted strong revenue growth and continued to secure prestigious runway attention, the conversation subtly changed. She wasn't reacting, she was building. That contrast became impossible to ignore. The tension between Victoria and Nicola Peltz didn't appear overnight. For years, small moments and conflicting reports fueled a media narrative that felt almost scripted. The powerful mother-in-law versus the sensitive young bride. Interviews were parsed for hidden meaning. Social media captions were dissected like coded messages. Even casual photos became evidence in an ongoing drama the public couldn't stop analyzing. In the middle of it all stood Brooklyn Beckham, a son, a husband, and a public figure navigating loyalty in real time. To some observers, his public support for his wife looked like independence. To others, it felt like a fracture within one of the world's most visible families. Either way, the spectacle grew louder. But while headlines framed the story as emotional conflict, Victoria's focus remained elsewhere. Collections, partnerships, retail expansion, and brand positioning. Her label's growing revenues and consistent presence at major fashion weeks signaled discipline rather than distraction. The same critics who once rolled their eyes were now requesting front-row seats. So the question naturally emerged, was silence a strategy? When public figures face criticism, especially from within their own family, the instinct is often to respond, clarify, deflect, defuse. Yet Victoria chose a different path. She posted about work, fitness, family moments, and product launches. No rebuttals, no veiled comments, no attempts to win the news cycle. Communication experts sometimes call this the gray rock approach. Remain neutral, unreactive, and impossible to provoke. Whether intentional or simply instinctive, the effect was powerful. Without engagement, there was no direct conflict to amplify. Without quotes, headlines relied on speculation rather than confrontation. The wedding dress controversy became a defining example. Public claims suggested expectations had shifted at the last minute, casting Victoria in an unflattering light. Many expected a response, a clarification, a timeline, perhaps even a rebuttal. Instead, she posted about new beauty products, workouts, and time with David Beckham. No explanation, no defense, just business as usual. That restraint altered the tone of coverage. With one side speaking and the other remaining silent, the story gradually lost its sharp edges. Over time, attention moved from conflict to outcomes, and the outcomes showed a brand growing stronger, not weaker. Silence in this context didn't read as surrender, it read as control. By refusing to escalate, Victoria avoided fueling a cycle that thrives on reaction. She allowed others to occupy the spotlight while she consolidated credibility in a different arena, one measured in revenue, runway reviews, and retail growth rather than headlines. Whether calculated or simply reflective of her personality, the result was clear. She emerged not as a combatant in a family drama, but as a disciplined business leader whose work continued uninterrupted. In an era where visibility often equals power, choosing restraint can feel counterintuitive. Yet sometimes the most decisive move isn't the loudest response, it's the refusal to play the game at all. And that may be why, as the noise faded and the numbers spoke, the conversation shifted from conflict to respect, and from scandal to strategy. I mean, let's be honest for a second. When headlines focus on a billionaire heiress criticizing her mother-in-law in glossy magazines while the world is dealing with real problems, the optics can feel off. That contrast is exactly where Victoria Beckham seemed to understand the moment better than anyone. She's been navigating publicity since the 1990s, long before Fashion Week front rows and beauty launches, back when she ruled global pop culture as part of Spice Girls. She knows how media cycles work. Feed the fire and it spreads, starve it and it burns itself out. But she didn't just wait for the drama to fade. She built something durable right next to it. While tabloids framed her as the controlling mother-in-law, Victoria was focused on the one battle that had haunted her brand for years: financial stability. This wasn't about winning headlines. It was about winning the balance sheet. Instead of trading quotes and fueling speculation, she doubled down on restructuring, refining product lines, expanding distribution, and repositioning her label for long-term credibility. And that's where the real turnaround began. For years, critics dismissed her fashion house as a vanity project propped up by David Beckham's wealth. Stories repeated the same narrative: losses, bailouts, unsustainable growth. But recent financial reports told a very different story. Revenue climbed to roughly £130 million, marking significant year-over-year growth and continuing a multi-year upward trend. More importantly, the company reported improved profitability metrics, signaling that the business model had matured beyond survival mode. Numbers don't argue, they reset the conversation. The shift didn't happen overnight. Victoria refined her approach: tighter collections, smarter pricing tiers, expanded beauty offerings, and a sharper direct-to-consumer strategy. Her beauty division became a standout success, particularly hero products that resonated across social media and professional makeup communities alike. Take the Satin Kajal eyeliner, a product that became a breakout bestseller. Beauty analysts noted its rapid sales velocity and strong repeat purchase rates, signaling not hype but sustained demand. Direct-to-consumer channels surged while wholesale partnerships expanded the brand's reach into major retailers across the UK and Europe. Distribution scaled, visibility grew, credibility followed. Meanwhile, her runway presence continued to evolve. At Paris Fashion Week, her collections were received, not as celebrity experiments, but as disciplined design work. Critics described the silhouettes as refined and confident, signaling a designer fully in control of her aesthetic language. Reviews in major outlets, including Vogue and the New York Times, reflected a tonal shift from curiosity to respect. That distinction matters. Celebrity can open doors, but sustained critical approval keeps them open. Victoria's recent shows demonstrated consistency rather than spectacle, reinforcing the perception that her brand had matured into a serious fashion house rather than a personality-driven label. And here's the fascinating part. This evolution happened while public attention remained fixed on family drama. Instead of responding, she redirected energy toward operational discipline and brand equity. Silence didn't just quiet the noise, it allowed results to speak first. From a strategic standpoint, that restraint accomplished several things at once. It prevented escalation, preserved brand dignity, and shifted media coverage from personal conflict to business performance. Over time, the contrast became its own narrative. While controversy generated clicks, steady growth generated credibility. The scoreboard changed. Today, Victoria Beckham's business stands on stronger footing than at any point in its history. Expanded retail presence, growing beauty sales, and sustained fashion credibility have reshaped how the industry evaluates her brand. What was once framed as a celebrity experiment is increasingly viewed as a disciplined luxury business with long-term positioning. And that's the real twist in this story. While the spotlight chased drama, Victoria focused on durability. While headlines argued, she built infrastructure. While critics predicted collapse, she delivered growth. Silence didn't weaken her position, it clarified it. In a culture addicted to reaction, the most powerful move isn't always the loudest response. Sometimes it's letting performance rewrite the narrative entirely. The narrative around Victoria Beckham has shifted in a way few celebrity-founded labels ever achieve. For years, she was framed as the pop star trying fashion, a shorthand that reduced her work to novelty. That framing has largely faded. Industry coverage now speaks about cut, tailoring discipline, and brand positioning, the vocabulary reserved for serious designers. Paris was a turning point. Critics treated her show not as celebrity spectacle, but as a confident luxury presentation. Even the image that circulated after the show, Victoria taking her beau on crutches following a foot injury, became symbolic. It reinforced a narrative fashion respects: endurance, discipline, and commitment to craft. In an industry built on relentless schedules and physical strain, showing up regardless of setbacks signals professionalism more than glamour. The shift in perception didn't happen in isolation. The global success of Beckham on Netflix renewed public interest in the family story, but it also reframed Victoria's work ethic and business focus. Subsequent fashion-focused features and media projects spotlighted her brand as a standalone enterprise rather than an accessory to celebrity. In that framing, she wasn't a supporting character. She was the operator behind a growing luxury business. From a business perspective, the metrics tell a clear story. Rising revenue, improved profitability signals, expanded retail distribution, and strong beauty category performance. Her brand's growth reflects disciplined scaling rather than hype cycles. That kind of consistency builds trust among buyers, investors, and fashion editors, the stakeholders who determine long-term viability. Equally important is tone. Victoria avoided public escalation during periods of intense tabloid scrutiny. In brand management terms, restraint can protect positioning. Luxury thrives on control, composure, and perceived stability. By declining to engage publicly in personal disputes, she preserved brand dignity and allowed performance to dominate the narrative. That contrast has shaped public perception, but it's also important to avoid framing success as a zero-sum contest between individuals. Nicola Peltz Beckham operates in a different lane: film, acting, and creative production. Her 2024 independent film, Lola, generated limited commercial impact. But independent projects often prioritize creative control and portfolio building over box office results. Many filmmakers use smaller releases as stepping stones rather than definitive career markers. The legal dispute surrounding her wedding planning also drew headlines, but civil litigation of that type is not unusual in high-budget event production. Media amplification can make routine contractual conflicts appear more dramatic than they are. Comparisons between fashion entrepreneurship and film production can be misleading because the industries reward different timelines and metrics. Fashion credibility often requires long-term brand building, operational discipline, and retail performance. Film careers can pivot rapidly based on a single role, project, or partnership. What distinguishes Victoria's trajectory is persistence. She spent more than a decade refining positioning, restructuring operations, and absorbing criticism before achieving broad industry validation. That long runway is typical for fashion houses, but rare for celebrity brands, which often rely on licensing rather than operational control. Meanwhile, Nicola's path remains in development. Access to resources can open doors, but creative industries still require time, audience connection, and project momentum to build lasting influence. Early setbacks do not define long-term outcomes. The broader takeaway isn't who is winning, but how differently influence can be built. One path emphasizes disciplined brand, construction, and luxury positioning. The other explores creative production and media storytelling. Both operate under intense scrutiny where perception can shift quickly. Public fascination often turns personal tension into competitive narratives. In reality, careers evolve on separate timelines, shaped by industry demands, audience reception, and strategic choices. Victoria Beckham's current standing reflects endurance, operational focus, and brand clarity. Nicola Peltz. Beckham's trajectory remains a work in progress within a different creative field, and that distinction between established positioning and emerging direction explains why the conversation feels so charged right now. That's where the real tension in this story lives. On one side, Victoria Beckham has continued building momentum, award recognition, sold-out collections, and growing business numbers, all while refusing to publicly engage in family drama. On the other side, headlines have often focused on conflict, creating a contrast that can make the situation feel painfully one-sided. Silence, in this case, has spoken volumes. Victoria hasn't issued public rebuttals, hasn't traded barbs in interviews, and hasn't aired private grievances. Instead, she has stayed focused on her work and public commitments. In luxury branding and public image management, restraint can be a strategic choice. Composure reinforces stability, and stability builds trust. But beneath the polished exterior, the personal cost of family estrangement is hard to ignore. Reports over the past few years have described increasing distance between Brooklyn and his parents. Changes in public behavior, from reduced appearances together to shifts in social media interactions, have fueled speculation about how deep the divide runs. Family estrangement, especially under global scrutiny, carries emotional weight that rarely appears in headlines. Behind the business growth and red carpet composure may exist something far more human. A mother navigating success while facing distance from her son. What stands out is how carefully Victoria has handled the public narrative. She has not publicly criticized Brooklyn or Nicola Peltz Beckham. She has not attempted to win the court of public opinion. Instead, she has projected dignity and restraint, a tone consistent with the Beckham brand's long-standing emphasis on discipline, composure, and legacy. That restraint contrasts sharply with the intensity of media coverage surrounding the rift. Tabloid framing often thrives on villains and victims, but real family conflicts rarely fit into such clean categories. What unfolds behind closed doors is typically more complicated than the public version suggests. From a broader perspective, Victoria's approach reflects strategic patience. Rather than escalate conflict, she has preserved space for reconciliation while protecting her personal and professional integrity. Keeping the door open without fueling public drama is not weakness, it's control. At the same time, Brooklyn's journey reflects a different kind of transition, carving out identity beyond a globally recognized family name. Navigating marriage, independence, and public scrutiny simultaneously is no small task, especially for someone who has lived under intense spotlight since childhood. For observers, the contrast can feel stark. A mother strengthening an empire, a son forging his own path, and a family navigating the painful distance between those realities. Yet beneath the narratives of success and separation lies something universal. Families fracture. Pride hardens, silence grows. And sometimes the most powerful gesture isn't a public statement, but the quiet decision to leave room for healing. Whether reconciliation comes soon, years from now, or not at all remains unknown. What is clear is that Victoria Beckham has chosen composure over conflict, legacy over spectacle, and focus over feud. And in a world fueled by noise, that kind of quiet strength can feel almost poetic. While headlines churned and speculation filled timelines, Victoria Beckham stayed focused on the one thing she could control: her work. The result is hard to ignore. Her fashion house has grown into a respected luxury label. Her beauty line continues to expand globally, and the Beckham name, already powerful, has gained renewed credibility in the business and fashion worlds. She did it without public feuds, emotional interviews, or reactive statements. No public meltdowns, no dramatic rebuttals, just calm, strategic consistency. People love a redemption arc, but what she engineered looks less like redemption and more like reinvention. Instead of trying to win back approval, she doubled down on discipline and craft. Runway shows sharpened her brand identity. Product launches demonstrated commercial strength. Critical reception shifted from skepticism to respect. Over time, perception followed performance. That shift didn't happen overnight. For years, critics dismissed her label as a vanity project. Today, fashion editors, buyers, and industry insiders treat it as a serious design house. Her shows in Paris are reviewed alongside established luxury brands. Her beauty line has found a loyal global customer base. Growth has come from steady refinement rather than spectacle. What makes the transformation notable isn't drama, it's restraint. In an era where public figures often respond instantly and emotionally, she chose silence and forward motion. That silence wasn't emptiness, it created space for results to speak. When criticism faded, numbers, reviews, and industry recognition filled the gap. This approach reflects a broader lesson about reputation. Public image can be shaped by headlines, but it is sustained by consistency. Victoria protected her peace, but she also protected her brand integrity. Every decision reinforced a narrative of discipline, longevity, and professionalism. Meanwhile, public fascination with the Beckham family dynamic continues, but the business story stands on its own. The Beckham legacy is no longer defined only by sports and pop culture. It now includes fashion entrepreneurship and brand building at scale. Legacy evolves when it adapts, and that evolution is visible. At its core, the lesson isn't about winning an argument, it's about choosing the long game. Silence can be strategic, dignity can be protective, success sustained over time can shift public perception more effectively than any statement. As for Brooklyn Beckham, his path forward remains his own to define. Identity built outside a famous surname requires experimentation, persistence, and purpose. Legacy opens doors, but fulfillment comes from building something personally meaningful. In the end, what stands out most is composure under pressure. Victoria Beckham didn't try to control the narrative, she outgrew it. She turned attention into momentum, criticism into refinement, and uncertainty into forward motion. Not every response needs to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the most decisive move is to keep building while the noise fades. And that quiet momentum may be the most enduring statement of all.